Live from the CBS Broadcast Center in Los Angeles, this is CBS 2 News at 11 p.m.
He is accused of sexually abusing hundreds of students at USC. Tonight, there is disturbing new evidence against former gynecologist George Tyndall. Police say they found hundreds of nude photos of what appear to be Tyndall's patients.
And it appears the pictures were taken in a medical office. CBS 2's Hermela Aragawi spoke to one woman who says she was a victim, and she joins us live from USC with the latest on this growing scandal.
Good evening, Sharon. Jeff, the photos go as far back as the 90s, police say, and they're trying to determine if any of them were taken here at USC Student Health Center, where Tyndall saw patients as young as 18 years old.
He violated me.
Police say they found chilling new evidence in the case against Dr. George Tyndall, a former USC gynecologist accused of sexual abuse by more than 200 women. Detectives say they discovered a collection of photos of unclothed women stashed in Tyndall's self-storage unit. The photos appear to have been taken in a medical exam room and are described by investigators as compromising.
What he did felt very different than what other gynecologists did, but I didn't know. I trusted him because he's the medical doctor, and I trusted USC because they had kept him on for so many decades.
Lucy Chi was Tyndall's patient back in 2012.
He would ask me to describe intercourse, the kind of intercourse that I would have in graphic detail. And I could tell that he was having a visceral reaction to it. You know, he started breathing heavily.
Police say the 71-year-old doctor was telling women he was taking photos for a study. In a statement, Tyndall's lawyer says, quote, the photos were taken for medical purposes years ago with the patient's consent and not viewed again by anyone, including Dr. Tyndall, after being moved to the storage facility over 5 years ago. Police say they also found videos in that storage unit, videos of Tyndall having intercourse with women not known to have a connection with the university. Reporting live from USC, I'm Hermela Aragawi, CBS 2 News.
They flew the coop and had some help. Pricey exotic birds swiped from an Inland Empire pet shop, and it's all caught on camera. More shocking than the brazen bird heist is who helped the crooks pull it off. CBS 2's Nicole Comstock joins us live from Menifee with what we know about the unusual gang of suspects. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, Sharon. You know, the shop owners here say that those customers came to the front door that morning banging on the window before they were even open. So they thought they were just excited to come in and take a look at those birds. They did not think that anyone planned on leaving without paying for them. It's an open concept pet store.
So many people have given us some bad comments about this, going, you need to lock your birds up.
Where all the birds are free to spread their wings and perch wherever they please.
I couldn't lock my birds up. I would close my store down before I locked them up.
But Lori Lister sure would like to corral this group of 5 people. She says 2 of the adults caught on camera inside Birds in Paradise purposefully distracted her employee.
The man immediately got Katie's attention and would not leave her alone.
So another adult and 2 kids with them.
They were pointing, grabbing. They kept on taking them, throwing them up their sleeve like this.
Could steal 4 of her young birds. The 3 parrotlets and 1 Stella Lori are valued at over $2,000. The Riverside County Sheriff's Department says they're investigating this case as grand theft. And the parrotlets that were taken are only 4 to 5 weeks old, and they're still being bottle fed 4 times a day. So that's why the owners are so worried about them.
It wasn't a pack of bubble gum. It wasn't a keychain. These are live animals.
Lister says she's worried the birds won't survive. She's worried about the kids she believes were used to commit this alleged crime. And now that her small business is out $2,000, she's also worried about her family.
We spent our mortgage money on buying those babies just so we could try to get a Christmas for our children. And now it may not happen.
And if you have any information, the Riverside County Sheriff's Department would like to hear from you. In Menifee, Nicole Comstock, CBS 2 News.
Nicole, thank you. An LA County Sheriff's deputy is now charged with the deadly shooting of an unarmed driver in Norwalk 2 years ago. LA County Sheriff's Deputy Luke Liu made his first court appearance in downtown LA today. He's charged with voluntary manslaughter after he shot and killed 26-year-old Francisco Garcia outside a gas station. A Sheriff's Department report says that Liu suspected that Garcia may have been in a stolen car and may have been reaching for a weapon as he began to drive away. That's when Lou ran alongside the car and opened fire, killing him. Deputy Lou pleaded not guilty today.
Community leaders are questioning why a naked trespasser was shot to death during a struggle with two LAPD officers inside a local gym. In October, two officers were called to the 24-hour fitness club in Hollywood. They were told Albert Dorsey was taking a shower after assaulting a security guard. Both officers' body cams fell off during the confrontation, so the video was shaky. Dorsey was shot repeatedly with a stun gun, but he still wouldn't give up. Police say when he started punching the female officer, her partner opened fire.
There's no way that that video could convince me that that black man should be dead, that any person should be dead from that kind of encounter. There were things that could have been done that could have both allowed the man to be restrained and the man to still be living.
LAPD Chief Michael Moore says he hasn't taken a position yet on the shooting. He says the investigation could take as long as a year.
The hunt is on tonight for a person behind a deadly terror attack outside a Christmas market in France. At least 3 people were killed, 12 wounded. The attack happened in Strasbourg. It's a city right near the German border where witnesses say the gunman opened fire. Police say the suspect is known to them. One report claimed the attacker himself had been wounded in an exchange of gunfire with police. However, French police say he is still on the loose.
Fireworks in the Oval Office. President Trump got into it with top Democrats, and all of it televised. Here's a sample.
I will shut down the government.
Okay,
absolutely.
fair enough.
And I am proud, and I'll tell you what.
We disagree.
Both sides sparring over the border wall and a potential government shutdown. The televised tiff involved the president and Democratic leaders Nancy Pelosi and Senator Chuck Schumer.
If we don't get what we want, one way or the other, whether it's through you, through a military, through anything you want to call, I will shut down the government.
Okay,
absolutely.
fair enough.
And I am proud, and I'll tell you what, I am proud to shut down the government for border security, Chuck.
The war of words continued outside the Oval Office. Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi later saying it's like a manhood thing for him, Donald Trump, as if manhood could ever be associated with him.
No dogs allowed. That could be the new normal at one Orange County beach. And as you can imagine, dog owners in Newport Beach are barking up a storm about that. That's where we find CBS 2 Orange County reporter Stacey Butler. She has a closer look at what's behind the dog dispute. Stacey?
Oh, Jeff, this is a hot topic. Authorities have not consistently enforced the leash laws at that dog park for years. I mean, it's to the point where everyone just kind of assumes it's a legal dog beach by default. But that's not the case, and it could all change this week. It's not really official or even legal.
Say, what's going on, missus?
But dogs and their owners are wild about this priceless patch of sand in Newport Beach, run by the county, known to locals as Dog Beach, where the mammals and birds roam free.
One of the reasons I like bringing her to the dog beach is because she can run free, and it's like really beautiful to watch, and there's not many places she can do that that's this big.
Over the years, more and more people have come to the unofficial dog beach. It's so popular, a county supervisor planned to make it official, but her plan went to the birds. Literally. The snowy plovers.
I don't understand why they're so upset about it.
Gary Brown with OC Coastkeeper says the rare species breeds in the dunes just feet from frolicking dogs. There's apparently nowhere else the snowy plover can nest. It comes down to this, the birds or the dogs. This week, the Coastal Commission has to decide.
I don't agree with that. I think the dogs should be able to run free. They don't really bother everyone. Everyone kind of comes here as a community and brings all their dogs here all the time. They have a great time. And it's a good place to do it right at the end of the beach here.
It's okay. It's the thing. You should have a dog on leash. It's not as much fun for them, and it's not as easy for me. Everybody has to share nature.
And if you want your voice to be heard, you're encouraged to come here to the Newport Beach Civic Center tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., also Thursday at 9 a.m. The Coastal Commission is expecting big crowds. That's the latest from Newport. Back to you guys in the studio.
Yeah, would not be surprised. Stacey, thank you. Getting taxed to text?
Why state regulators are voting on whether or not to charge people when they send a text message.
Plus, it was a worse than normal evening commute along the 405. Why so many people were stuck going nowhere fast. Also,
a basketball star doubts man landed on the moon. What astronaut Buzz Aldrin is saying about this tonight.
And caught on camera, an amazing act of heroism, how a police officer went above and beyond to save children from a burning building.
And we are getting a look outside right now at the Santa Monica Pier. Things are calm, but we are expecting Santa Ana's followed by another chance of rain. I'll have your forecast ahead.
All right,
just before Colbert, that is not the holiday spirit. A man caught cursing over the loudspeaker at a Christmas pageant for kids, and it goes viral.
And here's a look at the guest tonight on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert.